Hello, everyone, and welcome back to I'll Watch What They're Watching, where we're curious and adamant about cinema. And today we are finally getting back to like our regularly scheduled programming after a lot of Ghibli and a lot of Oscar. We do have one Ghibli episode left, but we did kind of want to get back a little bit in the swing of things. So we are back with another Arts versus Charts.
Basically, what this came down to was a movie I really wanted to rewatch and a movie I really, really wanted to watch. And that is Past Lives from 2020 and directed by Celine Song, and the all-time classic Casablanca, written and directed by someone.
Yes, this is directed by Michael Curtis. The writers, there's a handful. There's an uncredited. It's based from a play, so there's a couple writers for the play and then 3 writers for the screenplay. But what I find so funny about some of our Arts versus Charts is because most of the time we haven't seen one or both of them. And so sometimes it really is a shot in the dark on like, is this going to be like, I didn't remember hardly any of Home Alone. And so when we were deciding on Night of the Hunter and Home Alone, like we realized it was such a great pairing once we finally like really got into it. And then I feel like there are other ones that we watch and we're like, well,
I knew the premise of Casablanca, and I knew that there was some conflict between an ex-lover, and I was like, yeah, I could throw Past Lives in there. I think there's probably some things there. So after watching both, I'm like, oh yeah, there's certainly distinct differences of movies, but there's at least some glimmers of things we can kind of talk about a little bit in here.
For sure. Absolutely. No, absolutely. I definitely would agree. But we talked last week about how we were both excited for Project Hail Mary. And you have not yet gotten to see it.
Where to start? Allie and Oliver flying to Arizona next weekend, flying out of Seattle. So I had the thought of, well, maybe I could catch this in IMAX. And so I was looking, kind of trying to understand what's there in Seattle. And IMAX is a funny thing, right? So like true IMAX, and I don't know the definition exactly, but there's only like 30 in the entire world of IMAX theaters that are like true IMAX. And so I found this description of the best IMAX theater in Seattle is the Boeing in the Pacific Science Theater, Science Center. And it's six stories tall is how tall this screen is.
When you said that, I thought, because you had said that in text, and I thought you were exaggerating.
I looked the next day, and I must have caught it at the perfect time where someone tickets or something, because I clicked buy, got my ticket, and then looked back a little bit later, and they were sold out again. So very excited to go see that next weekend on a very, 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 very big screen.
That is super exciting. I'm super, super excited for you. I'm really interested to hear what you say and what you think, because you've read the book, right? So I have not. So I did get to see it last night. I obviously had seen the trailers, so just quick recap, but it's basically the premise is that this guy played by Ryan Gosling, sorry, the sun is going out. Something seems to be eating the sun. So he goes on this big space adventure to try to figure out what is going on. And as on the way, he meets up basically with an alien species that looks like a big rock. And this alien seems to be doing the same thing for his world. So they decide to work together to try to figure out. They're both deep in space, far from home. They're both trying to figure out what is causing their suns to go out, essentially. And so there's some flashbacks on how like Ryan Gosling even got here on this mission. Because he's kind of lost his memory when the story starts. He's already in deep space when the movie kicks off. So again, things are told in flashback of how he even got here, what's going on. And then it kind of kicks off from there. I won't say too much, and I'm going to be very, very careful to not reveal spoilers, but I did like it. I was having a whole lot more fun until the 2-hour mark. And I've shared a little bit of this with you. I've had friends who have kind of said the same thing.
Double climax.
There is yeah, I was about to say there's too much movie after the climax. So you have this climax, you even have like the falling action, and like physically I start to come down from that. And I didn't notice until something else happened and it kicked off again, and I felt myself almost like really tiredly being like, all right, let's get back into it. Whereas I was like, no, I'd gone on the ride. We had it. You did the thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I was kind of talking about it, how I think that works really, really well in a book. Obviously, I haven't seen the movie, so I can't comment completely on it. But one thing I don't know that we have talked about that often is I do think that sometimes there are movies that would work really well as miniseries or TV shows that I think you would. One of my brothers maintains that Sinners would work better as a miniseries, which I think is interesting. Which I can understand on that one, because I do think there are some like very distinct like sections of it, and so you could take certain parts and flesh out. You could flesh out more of the Chicago storylines.
Yeah.
You could flesh out more of the vampires' backgrounds and the Native Americans. And so I think that there are some really interesting. It doesn't always work, but, with an adaptation, you are going to struggle a little bit being from a book and the pacing and how you're going to do that. But again, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment fully, but I do acknowledge and understand where you're coming from. Having read the book, I know the double thing happening, so.
Yeah, because my gut reaction was like, just cut it. Leave that on the cutting room floor. But then that's why I reached out to you and you were like, oh, that's in the book. And I was like, well, then I feel like you hit this. I don't know. Do you do some things to lower the tension earlier on so that it better matches with the book? Do you cut, some of the stuff in the ending so that you have better narrative flow? Like, I don't know. I keep kind of wrestling with it. All that to say, again, I'm trying to keep fairly spoiler free. I did really, really like it. I was having, like, there was one point, a lot of the movie, I was like, 4-star. And then it got to a point where I was like, no, I'm really emotionally invested. 4.5. Like, I'm having a really good time. These visuals are really, really pretty. Loving these characters, loving what's going on between these characters. I'm really invested in this. And then that moment happened. I was like, nope, 4 stars. I can't. I'm really, really annoyed by this. Like, I was really annoyed. I think the guy next to me was kind of annoying, which that does affect it. Which is fine. He laughed at absolutely everything, first of all, which I was like, bro, these aren't all funny. Some of this is funny.
People that laugh in parts when you're really not supposed to, and how uncomfortable of a viewing experience that makes it.
Like, I think he was laughing. I don't think he was laughing in like emotionally tense moments or anything. It's just the movie is very, very goofy and kind of has a lot of little like bits and one-liners thrown in. Some of which and a lot of which I think work. I was having a good time. I was laughing, but there definitely are moments where I was like, that's not really that funny. And the dude next to me was like one of 3 people in the theater laughing. There is one moment that's, and this is going to make me sound like a jerk, but like there's a moment where it is very emotionally tense and you're really feeling for this Ryan Gosling's character and what he's going through and kind of his mental process. The dude next to me starts crying, not quietly or softly either. And I don't want to be a jerk. I've had super emotional, I've had theater experiences where I am a sobbing mess. And like, I am just, I'm sure the people around me probably think I'm a crazy person. I try to be quiet though. I'm a pretty silent crier.
I get it. Yeah, some people just go to the movies to feel stuff, and sometimes it's annoying as all get out. Yeah, and I texted you this too, that I'm worried I'm just going to give this movie a 5-star because I'm going to see it on a screen that is 6 stories tall.
Well, and to be fair, it's it is your type of movie. Like, it is a movie that I see you liking a lot. The visuals really are something. Like, there were several moments, I wasn't even in IMAX, and there were several moments I was like, holy crap. Like, they're just really, really, just some really, really cool visual stuff going on. I mean, they're in space and you see cool lights and, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's good. I think it's one that pretty much anyone would have a pretty good time with it. Like I said, it's fun, it's a little goofy, you've got the high stakes, you've got the visuals. Like, I think there is something here pretty much for anyone. I do think it is more like it's not an art film, it's a popcorn film for sure. And that's the thing is I'm not knocking it. I think there was some aspect of like, ooh, this is going to be this really incredible like sci-fi art film. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's definitely more of a crowd pleaser.
And that's really great news. It really is a spiritual sequel to The Martian. It's the same author, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, just double checking.
Yes, I would agree. If you liked The Martian, I would say you'd like this one.
Right.
It's funnier, and I think it's more fun than The Martian. Also, like, stakes are higher. The Martian is just about Matt Damon's character, and this is about, humanity.
We were at like a library trivia night one time, like 3 or 4 years ago, and I got one of the questions right. 'Cause it asked specifically about, I think it was like, what is the substance that is making the sun disappear or something, and like astrophase or something like that. And I got that trivia question right. I was the only one in our group that knew it. So
Awesome. Yeah, anyway, like I said, I think it's fun. I think pretty much anyone could go in and have a good time. I think like I said, it's making all kinds of crazy box office records. So I think, yeah, I could confidently recommend to pretty much anyone, go see this, you'll have a good time. So yeah, I mean, that's Project Hail Mary. Did you get a chance to watch anything else?
No, I didn't watch anything.
Okay, fair enough. The only other thing I'll say is I plan to watch Undertone, and then some work things happen, some call-outs and crazy things. So I ended up not being able to go see Undertone. I'm actually glad about that. Because early reviews were like, this thing is terrifying. I saw the trailer and I was like, this is kind of spooky. The reviews that I'm seeing come in are like, this is kind of dumb. So glad I didn't see it. And then last thing I'll just say, Project Hail Mary, I came in shortly before the movie started, so I only caught one trailer, but the He-Man movie, Masters of the Universe, apparently coming out June 5th. I was like, this looks like schlock. I'm so excited. I don't think it's gonna be good. It looks goofy. It looks like, I don't know if they're just going for like 80s or 90s nostalgia or what.
The thing about stuff like that annoys me is, why do we have to start with Earth and like real life? And it makes me even more mad in something like the Mario movie. Like, why is so much of this movie just them in Brooklyn? Like 1 minute tops, maybe, and then we're back into it. So I am interested. This next week, the second Mario movie is coming out.
Yes.
And I actually am fairly optimistic about it. And part of that is because they're already in the world. And so there's no need to do this like real world stuff. It's already established. They've already done all the like sort of establishing things and things to orient. So I am interested. I just hope that they do rely less on lots of needle drops. I was like, okay, I get it. We've had enough. So
yeah,
I think it has potential to be really good.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, if you look at I think the first Mario movie I gave 3 stars because I don't know why, but I was super grumpy about it. And when it started breaking records and stuff, I was like, this is dumb. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
Which is like, I love Mario. I love Nintendo. I think I was annoyed by like the lack of like, I love the little Italian Mario. I love the, it's a me, Mario. And it was like, Chris Pratt is doing it without the Italian accent. What kind of garbage is this? No, I had a decent amount of fun with the first one. I just thought it spent a lot of time spinning its wheels, like you said. But yeah, this upcoming one should. I'm hopeful. I'll probably go see it. If nothing else, like I think it looks really pretty. So because I do have it, I have 2 IMAXs that are both within about a 10 to 15 minute drive of my house. So I might even try to see that one in IMAX too. But did not see Project Hail Mary in IMAX. I would say if visuals are like high on your list and that's something that you want, definitely an IMAX is worth it for sure. I just couldn't get a seat last minute. But shall we dive into Casablanca and past lives?
Let's do it.
So Casablanca was, I did not rewatch it. I just didn't have time, but I have seen it before. I do honestly really love Casablanca. It is a film that is, I don't want to say like near and dear to my heart. I have no personal attachment to it other than I just think it's really freaking great. And it's 102 minutes, which is perfect. It's also one of the few movies that has 100 on Metacritic. It has a perfect 100 score. Directed by Michael Curtis. He did a lot of movies with Errol Flynn, so he did like Adventures of Robin Hood, Captain Blood, things like that. And then, like I said, the writers are a little all over the place, starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, as well as Paul, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, maybe Henri, who plays kind of the non-Humphrey Bogart part of the male part of the love triangle. But I'd like to know just kind of because you saw it for the first time, just some of your like general thoughts about it.
Really good, just to start. A really good script that I think obviously carries it and allows you to understand the stakes, understand the story, pick up on things throughout. I do think there are parts, as a you criticism, I do think like the Paris flashback, I'm not sure that I need that. I think that in some ways it's almost better to leave that mystery of their relationship alone. And I'm not sure the Paris flashback really adds anything or adds anything that you couldn't have added by conversations between them. That's probably my only criticism. I think it's really, really good. I do think it's one of those, there's maybe one too many, what's the exact quote? Here's looking to you, kid, or something like that. I think there's maybe one too many of those where it's like, he keeps saying it by the last time he says it, he's like, we should have cut one of those out. Like, it just feels like he just keeps. So people probably be mad about that criticism, but I did think that was kind of funny. It's kind of like when you're like, when they joke that someone's trying to have a nickname or like a catchphrase and they just like keep saying it and people are like, okay, yeah, we get it.
Obviously, this is a thing.
Yeah, but obviously it's a movie, and I do think that's a great line. Just a lot of classic things, a lot of things that I've obviously seen before that took inspiration or source material from Casablanca. But I had no real issues with like approaching this, I don't know how many years exactly when this came out, 80 years later or whatever, 60, 80. Had no issues. I think the movie anybody could watch today who hasn't seen it, and they'll be engaged and they'll have a great time and they'll understand, and there's not a high barrier of entry or anything like that. One of those things too where it's like should never be touched, should never be remade or anything like that. It's just like I said, it does stand where it is today. So I think it's just a really good, I had a really good time. I do think that maybe the only other thing I would say about watching this 80 years later is there's no tension for me about him not giving the papers to her.
That's wild to me.
Yeah, I don't think that I ever truly thought that he would take it for himself. Just
I 100% did.
And I think part of it for me is the time period. And like, I don't think I can't remember this exactly, but I don't think they even kiss because she is technically married. And that would have been a huge scandal at the time of them making this movie. And so I'm like, there's no way they would make a movie right when World War II is like in the middle of World War II. This is halfway a propaganda film. there's no way they would make this film and not do the quote unquote right thing. But I do think, with that being said, I do think it adds like a little bit of a layer of nuance of like understanding his motivations and why he's doing what he's doing. So I think that part of it kept it engaging and kept it interesting for me. But yeah, at no point did I think that he wasn't going to do what he was supposed to do.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I wasn't looking at the exact year when I watched it, and just, I don't know, just everything about it and everything we knew about Rick, like, because Rick's a, I feel like I'm always like, let's dive right in. Brief synopsis. I'll just read it from the IMDb. Cynical expatriate, American cafe owner struggles to decide whether or not to help his former lover and her fugitive husband escape the Nazis in French Morocco. And that's pretty much it. The love triangle is, he used to be with this woman, and he could choose for him to fly off with her into the sunset instead of her husband. And, there's tension with Nazis. There's tension with Rick's Cafe as kind of this gin joint where everyone is welcome, and so you have some Nazis, you have some Nazi affiliated members, you have people who are, her fugitive husband is a big like French patriot. So yeah, it's very, I don't know, it's very, very good. Like, there's a lot of, I think the acting is really, really solid. And like you said, there's some older films. I mean, this is 1942 as well. Like, we're not talking 50s or 60s. Like, this is maybe like a good decade out of the silent era.
Right.
And sometimes when I watch older films, I have to put on what I call like my 90s or my 1940s glasses, where I have to recognize like the time that this came out, and kind of, I can't put my like 2026 expectations on it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. This is one that I'm just like, I didn't even have to like fully consciously think about that. I was just having a good time.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And I think where it is interesting too with Rick's character is like he puts off this sort of like the IMDb mentioned, this cynical view about him, but I think the clue throughout the movie is that he really hasn't. That throughout the movie he really is continuing to kind of like do little things of, what's the right word, of sort of rebellion against the fascists. Yeah. But he's also positioned himself to be, again, in a very good position, like in this situation where he has these papers or anything else, that he can do a lot of good to fight the fascists. And so I think that those clues are, and that's part of why I say I think he's always going to do the right thing. I think there's clues. I think that it's a great setup and a great screenwriting technique to give us an example of Rick in the middle of the movie, where he helps the woman at the casino to pay enough money so that she doesn't have to do anything she does not want to do with the police people or the Nazi or whoever it is. And so I think obviously at that point, it's giving him an exact moral conundrum that he then is put into as the person that wants to be with a woman. And so I like that the way that it juxtaposes those things together, to kind of clue in the viewers as to what's really going on here.
Yeah, because, I mean, you meet Rick and he's kind of this jaded, cynical, douchebag. But like, you want him to do the right thing. Like, as things go along, like, I don't know, I feel like you're kind of in the conundrum with Rick, because I see him with Ingrid Bergman's character, and I'm like I want them to be together, but also like, Rick, this is bigger than you. Like, you got to do the right thing, which makes it so rich, like, when he does.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I had mentioned this before, but what are your thoughts on it's that scene where they're singing the French anthem?
Yeah, it was awesome. I think that's a great scene too, because it shows why her husband is so important, that he has that ability to just sort of organize and unite people together. And so I think that's the first time you see it firsthand of like, oh, this guy, yeah, that's great. I loved it. I got chills.
Again, you're kind of seeing it from Rick's point of view. So this guy shows up and you're like, who this guy? Why is he here? What's he doing? And you hear people say like, oh, he's this big, diplomat patriot. He's really helping the war in a really, specific, impactful way. But you're still kind of like, yeah, but he's not, who is this guy? Who's this guy who came in and stole Rick's love? And then you see moments like that where, yeah, same thing. Like that scene is just like one of the scenes of the film for me, where I think you said it exactly right, where it's just like, oh, this guy is important. And you get kind of a front row seat to see exactly how and why.
Yeah.
Great movie. No, I think it's, I love Casablanca. Like I said, I think anyone could watch this and have a really, really great time with it.
Yeah, no doubt. So that brings us to, well, what was your score? I rated this a 4.5, but it's a timeless classic. I've no issues with 5s or anything by any consideration.
This is a 5-star for me.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No doubt, yeah.
But anyways, so that brings us now to Past Lives again. Theme song.
Oh, interesting.
So for whatever reason, they are locked into the love triangle cinematic universe. So
right.
I don't know what exactly is there, but it's great. So basically, Past Lives, I would say, it's a film following a woman and sort of a childhood sweetheart that she has in Korea. And it shows them over time kind of connecting and unconnecting, and meanwhile her kind of moving forward with her life and eventually finding someone for her to be with. And then sort of how does she reconcile with all these feelings over all of the years with the life that she has now and the potential life she could have had with this other person. So again, it is one of those, like, I almost classify this as like, it's a rom-com, but, and maybe this is really stupid of me to classify it this way and you say, you idiot, it's just a romance. It really does feel like a rom-com without the like heavy comedic parts. Like, there's some parts that are funny, but I feel like it's almost structured that way, if that makes sense. Like the way that a rom-com generally would be. But there's like not really a lot else going on. It's just kind of walking through these relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, to me, I'm like, well, then that's a rom-dram. That's a romantic drama.
Yes, exactly right. That's a good way to phrase it. So this was your first time seeing this one. So how did you feel? I got some. You didn't say so much about the movie itself, just sort of like you were following
nothing
along,
about the movie.
You're following along plot-wise, texting me things, but I have no idea what you thought of this.
Yeah, I'm still kind of, I think it's very interesting. I think it's a very interesting film to discuss. And I do like that it presents questions that it's not entirely interested in answering. I like when movies do that. I think this movie is missing some depth in the characters. I think that, and this is a damn shame, but I hesitate to say this because I don't want to say this, but I feel like it's true. The character that I feel like I understood the most and got really where they were coming from is her husband, Arthur. And this is a movie that is that wants to be very much about like the Korean experience. And the two Korean characters, I just didn't get the same kind of like richness from. And someone made a good point. I was reading kind of through some reviews and different thoughts. And the character of, what's her name? Her last name is Moon. What's the character's name? Nora. The character of Nora is very much a self-insert of Celine's song. Like, it is very much beat for beat kind of her life and her trajectory. So I do think that that does have a tendency to fall a little flat because you're not gonna human nature, you're not gonna put your own, like, nuances and flaws in that character when that character is a self-insert of yourself. And so, like, as it was going on, I really was like, I really am kind of on and we can kinda discuss a little bit. Like I said, I think there's some really interesting questions to discuss here. I think what's keeping me from really, really loving it is I don't think these characters are fully fleshed, three-dimensional dynamic characters. I think they're a little surface level for what this movie is wanting to say and do.
Yeah, that's an interesting critique. And I think you're right in the sense that it isn't it never really tries to, like, Nora's obviously a writer and has big dreams, but we never really see how that, like, what she's doing currently or like how that affects
Well, and
anything she's doing.
I just don't feel like we ever really see her, like, wrestling with some okay, for example, one example, so Arthur has that monologue in the bed where he's
Hmm.
basically like, "I love you. I'm not sure if you even love me." And, when he's like, "You speak Korean when you dream." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Like, I would have appreciated more insights into just I don't even need to know about her career, but just like who she is. Like maybe it would have been nice to see a scene where she is sleeping and speaking Korean or he sees her speaking Korean. I don't know, like more of a show not tell type of thing. Like I would have liked to see. I feel like we got some of it in the 2011 sequence when she's just starting to be in New York. I feel like we got bits of it. It just sort of dissipated in the third act, like the third segment, which is the longest one. I don't know. I did not feel connected to these characters because I don't think I fully even knew who they were. I
Okay,
don't feel
I
like
can
I got
understand
to
that.
know who they were, what even like deeply what they wanted. Whereas like I feel like I did kind of get to know who Arthur was.
I can understand that. And so I think where this movie works for me is, I think, similar to how you mentioned that Nora is a self-insert for Celine's song and the way that she kind of feels about things going on in her life. I
Mhm.
feel like the movie as a whole, like the concept, is a self-insert for a viewer or for me to insert myself into, and kind of, I think, just the general thesis of how I understand or how the movie speaks to me is how there are kind of there's people that come into your life and there are decisions that you make that put you onto different paths, and it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going on the right path or the wrong path, but that there are just different things available to you, and there are different ways that that could have manifested or things could have happened, right? Like she could have kept talking to him and given him a chance, or they could have just waited a couple of years and then eventually made something work. And so I'll just say, like, the first time I watched this movie, I thought it was beautiful, first of all. It's one of my favorite looking movies out there, especially in this genre. I think that there's just a lot of really, really unique scenes that they do with some shadows at certain parts. There's some really beautiful, like when
It's very
Arthur
pretty.
arrives. Yeah, one of the scenes that just sticks in my head is when Arthur arrives at, like, the writing retreat place or whatever, and it's just like
Mm,
she's taking a nap, and it's just like a beautiful summer day, and like
yeah.
you just hear the I don't know, I just think it's really cool. But so the first time I watched this, I just felt so sad. Like, it was a movie that I felt emotional and I cried, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, it just that aches to be able to just think about, like, basically the possibilities of what could have been. And when I rewatched this, I just felt like so much, trying to think of the right emotion, just like almost hope, or like basically I just felt so much security in her and Arthur's relationship this rewatch, that
Yeah.
I felt like the vulnerability of Arthur being able to just pour his heart out and to be able to put himself into these situations that are so uncomfortable, and to trust, and to just like his looks, but to Nora, like him basically being like, I want to be anywhere else than right here. This is horrible, but I know you have to do this, and I've got your back, basically. Like,
Yeah.
I know that what we have is. So this time I just felt like a real sense of sort of security between those two that I saw glimpses of obviously the first time, but I thought this time just really hit me.
Because I will say I did love that couple things I loved. Because the one, and I don't want to go deep into the one pushback that I was going to give you as far as just what you got from the messaging the first time. I was like, well, La La Land does it, and it's a better movie. But that is beside the point. I don't want to pee in your Cheerios. If you, I've said before, I think on the podcast, I want to be better at, like, if someone enjoyed a movie, I want to celebrate that they enjoyed it. But I'm going to feed into couple things I did love. That tension when they're waiting for that Uber, holy crap. Like, I was sitting there just being like, are either of you going to move? Are either of you going to do anything? What's going on? Are you going to kiss? Is he going to lean into a kiss? Is she going to reject him? What's happening? Like, you're sitting there for a solid probably minute just going, what's going to happen? And there's never a moment where that was the moment where I was at the edge of my seat, where just the tension building in that scene is chef's kiss. I also love what you said about the security of her and Arthur, because I do find what's really interesting and what I actually really liked about the ending. She doesn't cry on the way home, or like get into her apartment and cry when she's alone. She cries and falls into Arthur's arms.
Right.
Like, he is her safe place, and he is there. He's not waiting inside the apartment either. Like, he is outside waiting for her, and she falls into him for comfort and for solace. I think that's really beautiful. And like I said, watching it, like, just kind of, not having seen this before, walking in, they meet at first and they have this banter as well when they're, in their early 20s. And I was like, ooh, they better end up together. I like this. This is cute. Then, I started to see her more with Arthur, and I was like, I'm kind of with this Arthur guy. And then, he kind of opens up about some of his insecurities. I was like, yeah, I'm here for this. Because then her first interaction with Hang Sung as well is, like, I was like, you're kind of boring. Like, I liked when you guys were bantering in your early 20s. Now you're very just severe. And I think it was, and I don't, maybe she had, she
but
has some blame here.
I think that's such an intentional buildup of, like, even of just like people I've had it of you just catch up with after, high school or 10 years. And there is just like this barrier of all this lived experience between when you knew this person and when you're talking to them now, that
Good
it's
point.
like, what do I even say right now? Like, it's just such a weird place to be in, of like, I have all these memories. I have all these things I've built up over time about you and about us. And now that we're together, I don't know where to even start or what to even say.
Mm-hmm. No, and I do think that's a great point. I will say that I thought it was my opinion of him also decreased when he really started, like, Arthur is right there, and he is only speaking Korean to Nora.
Yeah.
Asking
He gets
her
a little aggressive,
questions that are, I know, that I was like, bruh, like, Arthur can't, the only reason you're saying any of this is because Arthur can't understand you.
Yeah.
But
at the same time, like, I think that anyone in that situation that, again, has built up this idea of this person for so many years and finally pulled the trigger to go out and to basically confess that, or basically, put in, either create something new or put an end to where you've been all this time. I'm glad that at a certain point he felt like he would be able to say everything that he had to say, like, you wouldn't want to, and you see it in movies where people make that decision to not say what they wish they had said. And so I think that this is a good, I can appreciate that he at least did say it.
okay, fine. I will let it go. I don't know. That was just my one thing that I was like, bro, don't do this. But I don't know, like I do think it raises some interesting questions. I did like kind of the way she responded to some of these where he was basically, because he said this whole thing like, okay, well, you're with Arthur, but like kind of implying like this could have been us. But then also later when he's like, what if this is just one of our layers, and like do you think maybe in a future life it'll be us together? I love her response where she's just like, I don't know. Because like there is no point living in an alternate reality or living in a future life, because that life is not the life that's happening right now. Like, it reminded
Yeah.
me of, there's a scene in 500 Days of Summer where it's showing different couples or different people talking about their loved one. And one of the, protagonist's friends is like, what's my dream girl? And he kind of describes some things, but then he's like, but, Robin, his partner, he's like, Robin's better than my dream girl because she's real. And that's kind of like, that's a line that kept coming through my head, is like, it doesn't matter if you guys will be together in a future life, because that's not the life you're in right now. And the life she's in right now is with Arthur, and your life is going to have your things. Like, it does no good to talk about the future life, because that future life is not here. And I think that's kind of what she said too, is she's like, you are infatuated with the 12-year-old girl of me, and like that person exists, but it's not the person that's right here sitting in front of you.
Exactly.
And so I don't know. All that to say, I think it's really interesting. He is very much, I think, caught up in an idea and a fantasy version of them together. And she is, while she can grieve for what could have happened, when she does kind of fall apart at the end, like, she's letting herself grieve for the life that, could have been, but she is very grounded in like, that's not the life that is here and that exists right now, and I am going to live in the life that is here currently.
So everything you just said is why I argue not that this is better or worse than La La Land, but why this is different than La La Land.
Okay.
Because La La Land is very much I won't. There's a lot of depth there too, but La La Land is very much a distinct decision to chase our dreams when we know that they conflict and they're not going to be compatible with each other, meaning that we are basically saying goodbye to our relationship. Versus, I think this is much more about reminiscing or like contemplating on all the possibilities of your life, but ultimately being content with the one that you have and being secure in that, and not feeling like you have to jump out of it because you have to explore this other life that you could have had, that, oh, maybe if I did choose him, I would be able to be I would be able to win this award, I'd be able to be the best writer or whatever, but being satisfied with the decisions you've made up to this point. So I think that that's where those two kind of diverge for me. Okay. Yes, that they're very similar, but I think what you said is spot on. And I think that creating those ideas of people almost is this sort of like replacement of an idea of how your life will live is what I think this movie does so well.
No, I would agree. And just kind of one other thing is, like, I love when Arthur is like, this is a great story. Because it is. We've seen rom-coms like this. Like you said, like, this is a really great story. You have this childhood sweetheart who you reconnect 12 years later, and then you reconnect again 12 years later. And yeah, there's something, it's a great story. And I think that's the thing, is like, yeah, this is a great fantasy. It's a great story. It's not grounded in reality. It's not grounded in the life they have. Like, the boring, and maybe I'm just talking about this because like I was talking to Sarah, this was months ago, but it was after she'd moved in and we kind of fell into a little bit of a cadence, and I was like, sometimes it just feels like we're just like roommates who are like intimate with each other. And Sarah was like, that's what a long-term relationship is. And I was like, oh, okay, because like that is the thing, is like, I feel like sometimes movies and even people in society, we romanticize like marriage and long-term committed relationships, and it's like, no, sometimes it's just the boring stuff. Like, yeah, there's you have the wonderful, moments. She and I went on a really lovely date yesterday and had a lot of fun. But then there's also the moments that are just like, okay, like this person hasn't done the dishes in 2 days, or like, oh, we're just lying in bed together and they're dreaming in a language that I don't understand. Like sometimes there's just the things that happen and you're not always being swept off your feet because reality steps in.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with the part where she comes back in and he's just playing video games. And then I think that what this movie does so well is it doesn't punch down at him or even the other character,
Oh,
Haesung. They're just no, these are just real people that obviously do different things. But I think I just love that scene. And like he pauses and he talks to her and listens to her. But yeah, I'm right with you. And I think that the two lines you mentioned, the one of you dream in a language I can't understand and you make my life so big. I think both of those lines in context
yeah.
are just like, yeah, those are great. Those are really good. And again, the cinematography of this whole movie, the layers I think that it does have. I don't disagree on Nora and Aisang about their. I do understand where you're coming from as far as their depth of character, but I think that their characters work in the sense of what it's trying to do, and I just really like it.
Yeah, no, like I said, I definitely can see why this would hit for some people. It's very interesting looking at the reviews on Letterboxd from my friends because they are all over the place. They are all the way from 2-star to 4.5. And like there are some people, I have a lot of friends who are sitting around 4. I have a lot who are sitting around 3. Like it's just, they're all over the place for this one. So I don't know that I'd necessarily say like if you liked Past Lives, you'll like Casablanca or vice versa. I think Casablanca is more of a popcorn, I don't wanna say popcorn film, but it's more fun.
Very
I
different.
think yeah, I think Past Lives, if you're kind of it is kind of a soft romantic drama. It's not too terribly long, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not one that I'm, like, dying to return to, but I think it's a soft, sweet, you know, quiet movie night type of movie.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Alright. Well, Adam, what are we watching?
Studio Ghibli and Project Hail Mary on a really big screen.
Right, we'll kinda figure out what we're gonna do next. Like I said, we had a bunch of Ghibli and then Oscars. I had midterms. Adam was going through some work stuff. So it's been a little chaotic. We're finally getting back to our regularly scheduled programming though. I am still trying to convince Adam to let us do a top 3 Barbie movies. So still campaigning hard for that. But yeah, we'll definitely be more active on social media and kind of let you guys know what's coming up the pipeline as we kind of figure that out. We've been just a little hectic lately is all.
Right. But as always, we appreciate everyone that is listening. Please subscribe, interact with us, and share with a friend. And until next time.
Catch you later.